Meet Codename Goose, your on-machine open-source AI agent, built to automate your tasks. Codename Goose is an intelligent and autonomous agent capable of handling complex tasks thanks to its core features. Connect with apps and tools you already use with extensions. Built on the Model Context Protocol, you can connect to extensions like GitHub, integrate JetBrains IDEs, access Google Drive, or build your own custom integrations for Goose. For a curated list of extensions, visit our docs. With a wide range of compatible large language model providers, you can choose and integrate your preferred model. You can also run Goose as a desktop app or through the command line interface using the same configurations across both. You can think of Goose as an assistant, ready to take your instructions and do the work for you. Able to handle a wide range of tasks across various engineering domains. Here are examples of tasks Goose has helped people with already. Goose has helped dive into a new project in an unfamiliar coding language, conduct code migrations such as Ember to React or Ruby to Kotlin, increase code coverage, and even generate unit tests for a feature, and much more. To get started using Goose right away, check out our quick start and be the first to know about upcoming features by joining our community.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Wild's Goose Case, where we highlight users, their use cases, and sometimes their wonky goosey experiments to hopefully spark some innovation with everyone watching and to get you to kind of push the limits with Goose. My name is Ebony. I'm a developer advocate here at Block, and I'm here with my amazing co-host.
Hi everyone, my name is Adewale. Welcome to Wild Goose Case.
Yes, and I'm going to bring up our special guest for him to introduce himself. Hey, Tobi.
Hi, I'm Tobi. I'm a reconciliation engineering tech lead. I've been at Block for, about 12 years, so it's been a really long time. And what I will be showing today is basically a replication of my first time using Goose.
Nice.
So
12 years is a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey quickly? Where'd you start out in the company? What team?
I started in what used to be called finance engineering, and that was everything from settlement to a little bit of reconciliation. And I actually stayed in that reconciliation path. And then as a team, we hopped through various parts of the company. We've been parts of the payments org, parts of the data org, and now we are part of corporate engineering.
Wow, that is exciting. So you did say this is kind of a replication of your first time using Goose. Your next question is this your first time using AI at all? Was this your first time exploring it?
No, I've used a little bit of ChatGPT here and there, and our our internal tools to find documentation that are AI based now. I've tried Copilot. I didn't actually like that much. That didn't really seem to vibe with me, I guess.
I can imagine.
That makes sense. There's so many different AI tools out there that I guess you do kind of have to find one that you vibe with. So hopefully you're vibing with Goose. I'm gonna just jump right in. I'm gonna let you take over, kind of give an overview of what you're gonna show, and then just dive in for the audience. I'm going to pull it up. Whenever you're ready.
All right. So let me give a quick introduction to the problem I was trying to solve. So within my team, we were running into some random BigQuery errors over like a number of weeks, and no one really knew where they were coming from. It seemed kind of transient, and it was kind of hard to see a pattern. At some point, based on the error message, it started to look like some sort of limit on the number of concurrent jobs, or maybe a rate limit on the number of jobs that were starting at the same time. But there's a ton of different limitations on BigQuery that we might be running into. So I wanted to see, like, can I get Goose to give me a visualization of how many jobs are running at the same time to like sort of validate this hypothesis. So let's see how I approach that. So I started out by basically explaining this problem kind of the way I did now. I took a specific job that failed and gave it the job ID, hoping that it would be able to like look up that job ID using the tools available on my laptop. And there's one part at the end that I want to circle back to later, and that is the part on how I'm telling it here how to approach the goal. And like specifically, I think what I find interesting is that I did not do this at all the first time when I was using Goose, and I still got to the solution that I got to today. But somehow when trying to record what it was doing, it kept trying to go in a different direction, and sometimes eventually still end up with the solution I wanted. But it might have taken too long for this stream, so I had to guide it a little more.
No, that's fair. I saw that, and I've never done that. I've never told Goose, like, this is the way you're going to approach the goal. So that's really cool that you took that.
Yeah. That said, I'm still impressed. Like, I'm explaining it at very high level, and it's still figuring out all the details. So you'll see that it figured out how to use the CLI command to inquire with BigQuery what is it, get more data about the job itself. It figured out exactly why the job failed, and indeed that it is due to rate limits on DML operations, which admittedly is still vague. Like, I've seen that in the error message myself, and it doesn't tell you very clearly what specific rate limit it is and how high that limit is. So you see that it actually got pretty far in creating a script by itself without any further interaction. And I wanted to actually pause here and talk a little bit about this, because I found this fascinating when trying to record this a couple of different times. And that is like how many different approaches it took to get the list of jobs. So in this case, what you see is that it used the BigQuery SDK to run a query that queries the information schema. So information schema is where there's metadata on like what jobs run in the past and things like that. Okay. So that's the approach it took this time. But over the couple of attempts I had recording this, as well as the first attempt, I've seen it try a number of different approaches, including using the SDK directly, like using the list jobs functions in the SDK directly to list the jobs. I've seen it shell out to the BigQuery CLI from the Python scripts and parse the JSON responses and then build a list of jobs that way. I've seen it read the jobs from a file and building a second script to spit out a list of jobs. And oddly enough, and that didn't happen anymore when I was trying it now, but when I did this the first time, it took an approach where it listed the jobs, and then for every single job, it would shell out again to the BigQuery CLI to get more information about that job, which made the script really slow, and I needed to guide it a little bit in a direction to writing a faster script.
Yeah, quick question on that. I mean, you talked about like trying different approaches and different attempts and getting different results. So I'm just curious if there were any things that stood out for you, and then you put into like the next approach or next attempt rather, in structuring your prompt or setting up the approach. I mean, you already highlighted breaking down some of the steps for Goose. I was just wondering if you were able to just identify some kind of, this is how I would approach this prompting next time, like some points probably share with the audience as well.
Yeah, a little bit. I think one thing I noticed is, at least when I was recording this, I was trying a few different phrasings of like what I want to do, and I think it seemed to help when I just prefix my prompt with, let me go back for a sec. Like prefix my prompt with like specifically saying like your goal is to do this and this. Right. And initially I was writing it more like, oh, I want you to help me investigate this and this problem. And that seemed to like let it go into some more different directions. And if I explicitly said like, oh, I want you to do this, this, and this, or just this, that seemed to work a lot better.
Nice.
And like the same for adding this final bit here on like how I wanted to approach the goal. Like I was able to reach the same goal, but it would just take too long for the stream if I didn't tell it. It didn't streamline it a little bit.
Sounds
giving
good.
it some pointers. Let me see where we were about here, I think. So yeah, other than that, you see that it kind of created a very sequential script, like no use of functions at all. I do like that it gives you like a very clear summary of exactly what it did. And in fact, it tells me a fair amount of information already in this response on like that gives me some pointers towards the issue I was investigating, as in there's like 538 jobs in just this 10-minute time window. And the number of concurrent jobs was 44 at maximum. And the peak concurrency occurred exactly when the reference job started, which is also a very good pointer that, oh, yes, this job might have indeed failed because of concurrency limits. So what I want to ask you next is, actually, I think I'm talking a little too fast compared to the video. Like it did generate a visualization already. So you see that this is already getting somewhere, right? You can see, you can see a peak. But what I would like it to do next is I want to actually break down the jobs by different types. And meanwhile, I'm also asking it to refactor the script a little bit. I'm not sure what.
I was going to say, I love the positive reinforcement. Like, this is excellent.
I've been doing that out of habit. Like, I'm not sure if that helps at all.
We found out in our last stream that it does. Like, if you speak like nicely to the LLM, like you'll get better output, better response than if you're a little negative. So
interesting. I mean, I could see that. Like, if like, yeah, I mean, it has been trained on humans writing messages to each other, I suppose. So another thing I found interesting now is that I asked it to make changes to the script, right? And what it did is create a backup of the current file, like with this name, like analyzejobs.py.back. And I found it interesting how it took different approaches there. Like sometimes it likes to number them, just like V1, V2, V3. Sometimes it just plainly overwrote the script that I already had. And this time it chose to create backup files like this and then sometimes number them. So I'm not sure how to best control that, but that might be something you could put in your Goose hints file maybe. Possibly. To tell it like, oh, I want you to always create a new script whenever I give you a new prompt or something.
When I was working with Goose, it did like the backup file, and I actually found it really helpful because we went in a direction where I was like, and I didn't set up Git yet, so I didn't have any versions. And I was like, wait, I don't actually like this. And then I went in the code, and I was able to find that there was actually a backup file of what I really had, which was perfect.
Right. I always set up Git.
What did you say?
I said I always set up Git. I don't know.
It's the responsible, smart thing to do for sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like what I run into, because I took a number of detours. I think the first time I did this. Yes, what I found is that I ended up with a folder with like I think 25 different Python scripts, and it was really hard to remember which one was the last one that was actually the version that created the graph that was most useful for me.
Okay, so takeaway: always set up Git first.
So, yeah, I think that might be a good recommendation. And if it could just automatically like commit all the changes after each prompt or something, it might be a nice improvement.
If you have GitHub extension, you could tell it to do
that. So I paused it again for a little bit because I do like how it pointed out exactly what it is changing here and broke it down in like different sections. Like it organized the code better, it made the visualization better, it added some more features, and it just improved the whole structure. what I found odd here is we already run this script once, right? And now somehow it looks like it forgot that it already installed the dependencies and wants to do it again. But overall, that's pretty harmless. So I basically told it to that it already installed the dependencies and just go ahead and run it. So we'll see what happens.
Did you do that in a different session, or you just kind of forgot?
No, it's the same session. That's why I found it odd. Like it just seemed to have forgotten that it already set up a virtual environment.
Right.
It's fine.
So like it's great that it can also like recover from those errors itself, but it's odd sometimes that it makes those errors in the first place. I do find it cool here to see that it finds like a couple of coding errors in its own script and can just fix it by itself. So you'll see it do a couple of attempts before it can successfully run this changed script. Yeah. Also find it interesting here that it's you know what, let's go back a little bit. I find it interesting here that now, while it ran the script previously and it already interacted with BigQuery, it's suddenly concerned about interacting with BigQuery and needing credentials and wondering if I maybe want to run the script personally instead of running it for me. So I have to explicitly tell it, like, you go run it.
And run it. Yeah. I saw what's it called? The graph looks better now as well.
Yeah, so you can see now, indeed, it followed my instructions pretty literally. It figured out some way to get a job type. But unfortunately, this job type is just a query job, which is fair. Like there's a couple different jobs in BigQuery. There's query jobs, copy jobs, load jobs, etc. But all these jobs are query jobs. So this kind of job type is actually not that useful. So what I'm going to do next is ask it to, I think I'm showing that here, yeah. But what I'm going to do next is I'm going to ask it to redefine what job type means based on the job ID, and we'll see how that turns out. Oh, and another interesting thing here, before we do that, is that by itself, it realized that this script might take a while to run. So it started to run it in the background and then just sort of periodically checking like, oh, did the script finish already? So you saw that I was able to show the visualization already while the script is still running.
I love that.
But yeah, we can go straight. Oh,
I was going to ask, did it decide to do that automatically by itself? Like running in the background?
I don't know exactly what that's based on. I did see something in the, I think in the way Goose is set up on like, oh, if you think you're running a long running script, then run it in the background. But it's odd in this particular case. I think it's odd that it didn't do that the first time it ran the script. And then suddenly this time it's like, oh, now it might be slow.
Yeah, normally I have to like point it out like, hey, don't run this because it's probably not going to end. Like, you know, like a NPM run watch or something like that. I'm just going to stay. So don't run, I'm going to run it myself. But it's nice that it's taking in the background.
In the back though, and you were still able to interact with it.
Yeah.
Right, I would like that a little more, where you can still talk to Goose or to the AI and tell it like, oh, this is taking too long, just kill the script.
Yeah. Okay, what is it doing now?
So yeah, now this is where I asked it to redefine what I mean with a job type. So I'm telling it to take the job type from the job ID, because I know how the system is set up, right? So I know there's some information embedded in the job IDs in BigQuery. So I'm telling it to inspect these job IDs and categorize the jobs that way and turn the plots into a stacked area graph of how many jobs are running concurrently. I mean, I told it that before, but I'm saying it like instead of categorizing all jobs as query, I gave it a little more pointers on how to categorize jobs based on the job ID.
Right.
And I've seen this done in different ways too. Like when I was doing this originally, it's I think the difference might be because it was reading the output from the BigQuery commands itself into the LLM. So it figured out how to categorize the jobs by itself. It like kind of saw some patterns in the way the job IDs were structured, and was like, oh, it looks like there's like 5 jobs for this pipeline and 10 jobs for this pipeline, etc. But this time, since I was a little more explicit in telling it like create a script to do this and create this visualization, it's yeah, I didn't realize that by itself. At least I think that's the reason.
Nice.
So yeah, we have a nice overview again, and then if we go back to Visual Studio Code, we can see that it indeed improved the visualization and made it a stacked area plot. And if I zoom in a little, you can pretty clearly see indeed that the peak of the number of jobs was right at the point where the failing job was. It also by itself chose to add this line of like where the reference job is, which is pretty useful. So yeah, let's try to make the time window a little smaller so we have a little better view of what's going on here. So that's what I'm asking it now. Like I'm just saying, like, can you use a 2-minute window instead of a 10-minute window? Since everything in the graph is so compressed in the middle right now.
So without having Goose do this for you, how long do you think this would have taken you on your own to figure this out?
I think since I don't usually work in Python and I don't know like matplotlib at all, which is the visualization library that it uses, I think that this would have taken me, I want to say at least a day, if not a couple of days to put together. And I think when I first did this, it was like, I think half a day or maybe 2 to 3 hours playing around with Goose to get a graph that gave me the right amount of information to actually fix this issue.
Not bad.
Oh yeah, that
is great.
I found it interesting here that it was smart enough in this case to properly parameterize the function that it created initially and just make it outputs. I should actually go back slightly more, I think. Where is it? It's fine. It basically added a parameter to the method for like how many minutes, like window minutes, how many minutes do you want the window to be, and parameterize the data that way. So you see now that we have a graph that covers exactly 2-minute window around the failing job.
Yeah.
And you see a pretty clear indication that there were a number of jobs running in parallel at this point in time. And this was basically enough information for me to fix the issue in our system, because based on this categorization, I know that all these green jobs that have a summary normalization in their job ID, they are all writing in the same table. And it turns out there's a limitation in BigQuery that I believe at most 25 concurrent jobs can be writing into the same table. And if you try to start more than that, these jobs might be failing. Or I think it's not even a number of concurrent jobs. It is a limit on the rate of jobs that write into the same table within I think 10-second period. So this gave me a pretty clear indication that indeed that particular type of job is the problem that we were running into. And so what I did after is I basically just changed our configuration there to kick off fewer jobs at the same time writing into that table, and the problem seems to have disappeared since then. So this was super useful for me to sort of verify the hypothesis that we were running into some sort of rate limits, and to get like a nice visualization of what was happening at the time of the job that failed.
Nice. So I'm wondering, like, why didn't you let Goose go in and change the configuration for you? Did it just make sense to do on your own? Like it was something quick, or could you have?
Yeah, kind of. This was like creating this plot was more of a task, I think, where, like I said before, it would have taken me some time to like learn a plotting library and tie it all together. And making the code change itself was in a code base I'm familiar with and could very quickly make that change. So yeah, and I mean, this was the first time I was using Goose, and I still have to take the step of telling it, like, go look at this massive code base and make this change that I want you to make. So I have to toy around more with that use case of Goose. And in this case in particular, I knew exactly what to change to fix this issue. I just didn't have the tools to get the data needed to confirm what the issue was. And Goose was super helpful in making that. And just in case, like before the stream, I tried to see if there was any sort of visualization like this within, say, the Google Cloud Platform, and I can't find anything. I don't think they have any graph of number of concurrent jobs. And you definitely couldn't, even if you had that, you wouldn't be able to differentiate it by some random substring of the job ID. Like, it would be nice if that was possible, but that's just not available right now.
I'm glad Goose was able to help you figure this out and kind of solve the BigQuery mystery that you guys had going on. That's really awesome. And I love that you broke it down to like show us the different steps, what was going on, and explain how you came to the conclusion as well alongside Goose.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah. I found in your code, before I go into that chat, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments and we'll be happy to answer. But I saw you have a Goose int file. I don't know if it's empty, but I was just curious to see if there's something to shape your Goose experience.
Yeah, I put a couple of things in there to make this recording go a little smoother. So one thing I run into a couple of times is that I almost ended up in an argument with Goose about what year it was. Like I had a couple of times where, so to take one step back, basically when you run the BigQuery command and tell it to output some information about a job, unless you use JSON output, it doesn't tell you what year it is. It just says like, oh, this job failed like January 16 or something like that. And so Goose, I think because of the year it was trained in, assumed that it was January 16, 2024, and then would end up taking this sidetrack where it would try to look up a job or look up jobs in January 2024 and not find anything because BigQuery doesn't store more than 6 months worth of data. And then I would try to correct it, like, hey, it's actually 2025, not 2024. And then, I feel like maybe depending on how I asked it or what else was going on, it would be like, no, it is actually 2024. Like, you are wrong.
Yeah, that's definitely the LLM.
Yeah,
I think some of the LLMs. Oh, Angie just wrote that actually. That's I said, don't blame her. It's definitely the LLM. Thanks, Angie.
I was going to say that because I actually had the same little argument, and then found out that it's 100% the LLM. Date on the data that it has. And that's
what I found funny is that it sort of inserts it as like passive aggressive notes in between its answers. Like, but was it again? I asked it to list jobs in 2025, and then it returned no output for some reason. And it was like, oh, I know why this returns no output. It's because you're asking for jobs in January 2025, and it's currently 2024. So that's why you're not seeing any results.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think in the absence of any more questions, we could wrap up. This has been very insightful. Before we do that, I was going to ask if there's any, like probably like an additional resource or step that you wish maybe was available as a tool in Goose, or this was just, like perfect experience for you. I mean, you already talked a couple about the iterations, like talking with Goose and making, those changes and those improvements with the prompting. Just any additions to, to wrap up, that would be great.
Yeah, I think indeed the like versioning, like some sort of built-in keeping track of what it's doing might be nice. Like, I'm not sure exactly what it would look like, but perhaps indeed something with a Git integration. But beyond that, I'm not entirely sure if I have anything for Goose. I do feel like that use cases like this are I think at some point going to make like monitoring dashboards sort of obsolete in a way that's it should just be a prompt where you can just ask these questions like, oh, can you render me a visualization of the number of jobs over time within a 10-minute window around this timestamp or something like that, and it would just pop up instead of currently where you have to like find the right dashboard somewhere and then like tweak the graph that you're seeing, etc., if it even exists at all. But that's not really a Goose improvement, but that feels like that would be just an improvement of workflows in general.
Yeah, I was gonna say like integrations and extensions. That would probably also make the experiences even better.
Yeah, I was also gonna say it's okay to say that Goose is amazing and you don't have any.
No problems at all.
No improvements needed.
No, I do realize that I didn't even finish answering the question on the Goose hints file. So like I just came with that anecdote on the year. So that's basically what one thing I put in it is I try to say like don't assume the current year in my Goose hints file. And then I had a couple more notes on like, oh, if a tool supports JSON output, prefer JSON outputs. If you want to run Python, know that you're on a Mac OS laptop and you need to use virtual env. And I think that's it. I try to keep it very high level because I'd known or I'd experienced in the past already, in that first time I was using Goose, that it could figure these things out by itself. So I didn't feel like I needed to tell it like, oh, when you use BigQuery, you need to interact with it in this and this way. I didn't add that to my Goose hints file.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thanks everyone in chat. Thank you for stopping by. It's been amazing. Learned a couple of things. I hope you also learned as well. Till next time. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, all.
Thanks, Tobi.
Automate everyday computer tasks without writing a single line of code. Here's how to plug and play. Enable the built-in computer controller extension. Now, let's play. Goose, I'm so tired, but I still have a lot of work to do. Can you help me while I decompress? Alright, play some classical music and dim the brightness. Then can you do some market research on popular AI models and organize that data into a CSV? OMG, Goose just set up my workspace, gathered key insights, and organized everything in a CSV file. Thanks, Goose. To get started with Goose, visit block.github.io/Goose.